Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Shellie Geigle with J&S Hobbies and Crafts, and today's tutorial finally is here on the large wedding album you all have been asking for. And this is using the Stamperia You and Me paper collection, and this is a large album. So after wrapping, finished size, we're about 9 1/8 by 11 1/8 with about a 3-inch spine. Now one thing about this is a lot of you know that I am under renovations at my house. We're almost done. However, they're going to be cutting the power, so I did not have time to do the picture mats. And I wanted to get this out rather than, and it takes me a while to do the picture mats. So I wanted to get this out so you guys could get started on the tutorial. So no picture mats are in here. What you see is what we do in the tutorial. So let's take a look. And I think this came out just beautiful. It really did. The paper was super simple to work with. So let's open it up. So here we have on our first page is 2 fold outs, and it's magnetic. And you will see some die cuts in here and some lace and stuff, but those are optional things. So you definitely don't need it. So these open up. And we have 2 large pockets here. And up front we have this folder, and there is no solid color cardstock or any paper in it yet, and I might just keep it white. And this actually holds closed these fold outs, and there is a tuck here, and then open space for your photographs. Moving on to the next page, up front we have a spaced out pocket, so you can really get a lot more picture mats right up front here. And then there are 2 pockets back here to get some picture mats. But this is a really fun one. This actually has plastic on it, and you can slide your photo in between and get a nice 5x7 in there. And then you can open it up, and it's a folder, so you can put more photographs in there. Alright, going to the next page. Now for this, it's pretty much open area, easy placement of your photographs. Over here is a pocket, and you can still fit a 5x7 in here. There's enough room, or some smaller ones. So our pocket holds this, and this is like just an accordion, and you can put more pattern paper in here if you wanted, and you can get a good size photo in there. And it just kind of all goes back in. Next page. I like this page. I think it's a fun one. And we use stickles, and stickles was also an optional item to bring in for materials to use. So these are just magnetic fold outs, and you can journal here, maybe put a little photograph, but right here, and I am going to grab something. Right here is a tuck, so you can tuck in a picture mat in there if you wanted. And then this is a large back pocket in there. But I thought that came out pretty cute. Next page, this is a very large magnetic fold out, and it will hold a lot of photographs. So that flips up, and this flips down. And because it's so large, I'm going to have to move this. Up here we have a very large side pocket, so you can get some picture mats on in there. And it's spaced out, so you can get several in there. And you can also place a photograph right on over here. This is open, just place your photos, and then down here a very large pocket. You can place several in there too. Let's move on. Next page, just for photo placement. So if you have a larger photo, you can get it in there, a good 5x7, or get a couple of your other ones down in here. And then coming to the last page, we have a large fold out, but we also have like a small photograph book. So let's go to this first. This is magnetic, and you open this up, and there are several pages to place your photographs on. And you can also put some decorated paper on here as well if you wanted. And then this is magnetic, and it opens up, and it's just, you can place your photographs down on it. And you can get 5x7s over there, 4x6, whatever it is that you'd like. So that is what we are creating today, and the pre-cutting guide is free, by the way, in the materials list, and there is a link below the video in the description area. You just click on that, it'll take you to my blog on my website, and you can download that. So let's move on into the materials list and then get started. Materials list. So for this is a large album and is a little more expensive than the other, like I mentioned before. You're going to need 3 of the Stamperia You and Me 12x12 paper packs. You're going to need some Tyvek, 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard. These are 12x12, and we'll be cutting those down, and that's on the pre-cutting guide. So you can do 80-pound or 112-pound for this album for your pages and pockets and foldouts. However, I'm going to use 3 sheets of the American Crafts 80-pound 12x12 paper, and that's just for my album wrap. And then what I'm going to use is 110-pound 8.5x11, and I'm just using the coordinations. 1 sheet of the clear plastic 12x12 is acetate. You'll need 1 pack of magnets, and I am using the basic gray, the large discs. There's 12 in a pack. Score tape for adhesives. I have 2 of the 3/8 score tapes, and I have a 1/4 inch. I am using the Art Glitter Dries Clear Glue. Let's get into some options. So options, I am using 1 yard of the flapper style lace, and I'll show you what that looks like. That's at my store. And it's really pretty. So about 1 yard of this is what I have. And then I'm also going to have this other lace. And this is a flat Rochelle, I believe. I'll have links on the materials list. So just this. And these are optional. If you don't want to use lace, you don't have to. But if you're using the lace, I do recommend the Beacon Fabric Tack. It really grabs and gets that lace down rather than having to hold it for a long time. I am using some stickles. I used it on my flowers I made, but I also might be using it on some of the prints. And this one's Stardust. So Stardust or Diamond will work. I did a tutorial just on the flowers already, and I'll have a link underneath the video in the description area for that. So I handmade my flowers and also some leaves and the products I used, the dyes and stuff. Now if you are not doing your own flowers, there'll be a link in the materials list to maybe some other packaged flowers that you might want to use. And optional is any die cutting. Now if you, those of you that don't have a die cutter machine or any punches, you don't have to have this. This is something that I decided I'm going to add after the fact. After things are made, then I can add this. But the one I'm using is the Frame a Card Leafy Borders, and it gives me some of these different sizes of die cuts, but not necessary at all. Another option is maybe to use some flat back pearls and some white, maybe 1/8 wide ribbon, and I'm just going to use white for this. These are options. The options are things that are extras, and if you don't want to do the extras, the album won't cost as much. All right, let's move on to assembling this large wedding album. We are on to assembling the base album, and we're going to go over these pre-cuts, make sure everybody's got their cuts correct and their scoring. So the first thing we wanted to do was cut 2 pieces of our chipboard, and they were 9x11. Next, we had a chipboard spine at 2 5/8 by 9 inch. We had 2 pieces of Tyvek. Now we didn't label these, we don't need to, it's kind of a strange material. And this is to help our binding so it won't tear or separate the spine from the chipboard covers. And these are Tyvek, and they were cut at 1 inch by 9 inch. And we had 3 pieces that were 8.5 by 11. And we called these our inner page. We labeled one of them. I'm going to get my scoring board over here. Now one thing, it does not matter what side your scoring board starts. So if your 0 starting point is here and you scored here, or if your starting point is over here and you scored on this side, it doesn't matter. We'll turn our page the way it's supposed to go. So on each one of these, what we did was we laid this down. So we are 11 inches across, and I'm going to bring this down a little. And on each one of these, we scored at 5/8 on each. Next, we cut an inner spine cover at 4 1/4 by 8.5. We cut 2 pieces. Now I only labeled one, but it doesn't matter if you labeled both. We have 2 pieces that are 8.5 by 10 5/8. They are our inside covers. And then what we had, and I'm using 80 pound rather than the 110 pound, but these are our album wrap pieces. And we had 2. And we had one at 5 5/8 by 11 1/4. And if you're asking why I said for 3 pieces of the 12 by 12, if you're using the American Crafts, is in case your colors are a little bit different from your inside. As you can see, there's a different color variation. This one is slightly brighter than that. That's why I usually do my album wraps all the same paper brand. And we're going to start right here with our album wrap pieces. And we're going to begin assembling. So the first thing is you're going to want to do is grab your, we have this one. This is 11 1/4. So these should be 11. You want to situate your 2 album wrap pieces that are larger so that you are 11 1/4 tall. So it should match right on up to this. So if it helps, put your ruler down and just put 11 1/4 at the top so you know what the tops are supposed to be. Otherwise, if you seam them, they're going to be different if you do it the 11 1/2. As you can see, there's a shortage down here. So just make sure that you have these correct. We're going to get into our 3/8 score tape. So we're going to have a 3/8 overlap when we seam this middle piece on top. And the reason why I did it this way is so that the seam, when we do seam these down and we get our spine piece, the seam is not going to land where the edge of our spine piece is. It's going to be slightly over. And that way we avoid getting cracks and splintering on our seams there. So 3/8. If you are new to album making, one thing about score tape is make sure you've washed your hands, you've got your lotions and oils off your fingertips. It's almost impossible to keep your hands off the adhesive, but if you do have oils and lotions on, it's going to decrease the potency and you may get liftage. So we have our 2 larger pieces on the outside and this one's on the in. So on the right side of your 11 1/4 by 11 1/2, we're going to just place it right on the edge here without going over. And ignore that. That was just when I was trying to figure out how big I wanted to make this. So I've got that down, and the next thing we're going to do is take your bone folder, whatever tool you have, and we're going to burnish. We're going to get that air out from underneath that tape. If you have air underneath the tape, you can get liftage. Now I'm going to turn this over. If you notice, if you have any overhang, it's a good idea just to snip it. This will get covered if you do have a little bit, but I just try and clean things up as I go. So we have it on this one. Here's our middle piece. Don't do nothing with that. Now we have the second largest one, and we are 11 1/4. Put a piece of tape over here for our seam of our other. So we're just going to get these ready. One on each side, on the inside. okay? Here we go. I tell you, it's so nice to be back to being able to do these tutorials after all that noise, and it's been going on forever. I've been antsy to get this started. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is, I'm going to tell you first before we do, but we're going to release this side of the score tape, and we're going to end up overlapping this on top. Now, you want to try and get it even, and I always do this in my tutorials. I'm going to put this other one off to the side for right now. What I do to try and keep it even is I'm going to get my cutting board out. You have a paper guide at the top, and I'm going to place that up against, and I need to get that out of the way. I'm going to grab my craft knife here to lift up this score tape backing. Okay, so I got that flush up against there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my 5 5/8 by 11 1/4. I'm just going to slide that under the guide and push that up there. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of overlap these. Now if it goes on a little bit crooked, that's okay. But that just helps to keep it kind of straight. And I'm going to burnish down. Okay, I'm going to scoot that over. I'm going to grab this one, and the adhesive is on this side. I'll just put that right on over. Get the adhesive off. And now, here's our middle piece that we put onto the larger. I'm going to push that up against and come right over the tape. Trying to keep this even. If you're a little off, that's okay. Alright, so I've got mine on. It's a very large piece, so you're not going to see the whole thing here for a moment. Get that out of the way. The first piece that I would like you to do is find your chipboard spine. And we're just going to lay this out so you can see how this does. I'm going to try and lift this up so maybe you get a better view of everything. Okay, your spine piece, you see where your two seams are, right? Just kind of lay that down in between those two seams. So a seam here, seam here. Now the object of this is that you want to leave at least an inch or so even spacing top and bottom. So we're just going to lay that down. Next, we're going to grab our chipboard covers, and what we're going to do is measure out about 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch from this over, so I'll just kind of put a pencil mark. And while that's down, I think I'll put one over here, measure out this way, about 1/4 inch. Okay. The idea is to bring this chipboard where your mark is and make sure it's even with the top and bottom of this. And that's going to leave you about a good inch or so of white cardstock over here so that we can wrap. So let's just take a look what we got here. So when we do put the adhesive on, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so now that you see you have your even on all sides pretty much, we're ready to get the adhesive on our spine. Now it doesn't matter if you do the side that has writing or the other side. I'm going to keep my writing up so that you can see what's going on here. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our 3/8 score tape, and we are going to line all the way around this spine piece like a picture frame. Okay, so this is an important piece, and we're just going to go ahead and put 2 strips in between. And you don't have to be precise on your measurement, just kind of eyeball it. It's going to be fine. Once we have it down, we definitely have to burnish that tape. Get the air out from underneath. We're going to remove the score tape backing, and we're going to place it. If you're new to using score tape or using your tool, it gets a little easier. I'm just kind of going along the edge and getting in between there. Okay, so I have my 2 marks, and I know that those 2 marks are where I'm supposed to be, so I'm going to go in between there, but most importantly I'm going to make sure I got the spacing here and here. If it's easier, if you want to lay it down again with the adhesive up and just kind of make a pencil mark where you think you should be placing that, you can do it. And just try to get it on even, straight. And if you don't, it's okay. You're going to line up anyway. There's enough room here and there. So we got that down. I'm just going to go like this. We'll flip it over and burnish again. Now it's time for the chipboard covers. And what we do on one, we're going to do on the other. So first things first, we're going to line it going around like a picture frame on each one of these. After you've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to place one down the middle. We'll place one in between those 2 points on each side. And then we'll just go in between each one of those. All right, we'll do the same with the other one, and then we're going to burnish down really good. I have both of mine done, and it is time to place this down. So I'm going to remove the score tape backing off of one, and we'll place it together. All the adhesive is off, and I have my little pencil mark. So I'm just going to make sure that I get this even here. So that one's down, and I'm going to do the same with this one. Remember, leaving that space, that's why we did the pencil mark. And I think that's good enough. So if you'd like, you can run your tool like this, but we'll get the other side once we're ready to. So I'm going to kind of just push that off to the side. Let's grab our Tyvek. And again, we'll use our 3/8. And Tyvek, if it wrinkles on you, it's okay. This does get covered, but we're just going to line it on each side with some of our 3/8. And we'll go ahead and give that a good burnish to get that down. And we'll do the same with this one, just on each side there. And we are not going over, but if you do on this specific piece, it does not matter really. It's gonna all be okay. Okay, I'm gonna show you first before we do. We're gonna remove the adhesive, and you see where your spacing is? This is gonna go directly centered over it on each side, just like that. And as you can see, when I was doing my little score tape, I got a wrinkle in there. It isn't going to hurt anything, and you're not going to see it by the time I'm done. Okay, first one down. I just line it up top and bottom. And if it goes on crooked, that's okay. We're just doing this. And we'll get the other one on. Now, one thing about my tutorials is we are going to start very slow so that the beginners have an opportunity to learn and we don't overwhelm them. And then as we get going on the tutorial down a good hour in or so, we'll kind of pick up the speed, just maybe a little, an hour or two into this. Because by then everyone will know how to make a pocket or what's expected. But we won't go too fast. I got that on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to condition the edges for our wrap. And all we're going to do is first we're going to take our hand, we'll put it down at the edge, and we're going to gently, little by little, kind of fold that in the sides to help it. Just little by little, and then we can kind of press it over with our hands. Okay? If you'd like to use the side, you can. And we'll move over to this side, and we'll do the same, little by little. Okay. Now, this is really long, so what I like to do, because my seams are right here, and even though we take care and when we are kind of conditioning and folding, sometimes after wrapping, you will get some splintering where those little seams are, and I'll show you how to remedy that. First things first, if your hands are not clean working with white cardstock, you're definitely gonna want to go wash them, or if your work area is kind of dusty, sometimes an eraser will help. But right here, I'm going right where those seams are and gently going to move myself out. So I'm going to go this way just a little bit, and then I'm going to go this way, and then I'm going to come back and just kind of work that little by little. And if you are uneven down here, it's okay. We'll be able to cover that up. Okay, so now we have that. Let's get our score tape and then we'll clip the edges. This will make it much quicker. So the first thing I'm going to do is line the outside of this, but since we are going to be clipping off the tips over here at the edges, you don't have to go all the way up. So I'm going to probably come down a good 1/2 inch or so, and I'm going to place my score tape, because I know that's going to get cut off. And then I'm going to do this all the way around. Okay, I've gone all the way around the outside edge. Now what I'd like us to do, we're going to go directly, I think, on the chipboard for this. So we're going to go from corner to corner like a picture frame all the way around. We'll do it like this today. And there's so many different ways. I teach it different ways. Keeps it from getting boring. And it also lets you know that really you can do things your own way on certain applications. And you'll find out what you like to do best when making yours. Now that we have that, let's take a moment and burnish that tape down really good. Now, be very careful when you come to your seams. If your seam goes this way, use your tool this way, but don't go back against it. So I go this way. Let's grab our scissors. We're getting ready to, I guess you'd call it miter the corners. You see where the corner of your chipboard is? The edge of your chipboard, measure out about 1/8, and that's going to be, actually that 1/8 is about right here. And what we're going to do is, and we're going to do this with each corner, is we're just going to cut, leaving 1/8 inch of cardstock away from that corner. Now you don't have to measure this out, you can just eyeball it. If you get a little more than 1/8, that's okay. But I'm just going to cut here. Oops. 1/8. You don't need to keep these, you can toss them, we won't be using them. Alright, so we're going to start by wrapping up the tops and the bottom, then we'll come in on the inside. So I'm going to remove the score tape backing from my sides, and I will do the bottom. We'll wrap the bottom first. Now don't jump ahead, and once we get the bottom and top folded, don't jump ahead and do your sides. We do have to tuck in a little bit on those sides. Okay, so where those seams are is where we really have to be careful. And again, if you need to work this a little more, do so, but I like to start in the middle where that is. And I'm going to fold it over. I got some dust on mine. And you want to remove the score tape backing, of course, from up here. What was wrong with me? Otherwise, you're not going to stick all the way. Okay, so remove, remove. And then you're going to press it over and start in the middle. Now you can kind of go and push yourself out this way and flatten it down. And we're going to do that this way too. Just carefully keep your hand down. Make sure you don't get any wrinkles. And you've got that. I see a little bit of dirt. I don't know what that is, dust, dirt. Okay, I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. silly me forgetting that. Okay, we'll start in the middle where those seams are. We'll press until it makes contact, and then we will slowly press with our hands. And we will burnish after a bit, but to get that down, I just kind of keep my hand where I've pressed, kind of make sure that I don't wrinkle. Okay, now that you have it, once again, where those seams are, don't go against your seam, just kind of use your tool. And then you can press that down. All right, now comes the part where we need to press in our edges, and we're ready to do the sides. So I'm going to release the score tape over here. Grab your tool, and I'm going to bring this into frame. All right, what I like to do is put my hand here, up here. I put a finger here, and sometimes you can turn this a little if it makes it easier. It does for me. So hand here, I hold it down with my thumb here. So here's that corner. Press it up against the top and go around the corner, and then you can press down anything. And what that's going to do, just kind of press, is tuck in that little edge up there for you. Okay? And we have to do it down here. So again, I'm going to put a hand here and here, and I'm going to go around the corner, and you can press down there if you want. Whoops. Just kind of go around. This is to help get rid of the little pokies. If you get a little bit, that's okay. We're just going around. Now we are ready to press this over. Now if you get any bulk, what you can do, I didn't get any bulk down here, but you see how the corner is kind of nice, but what you can do is once that's down is you can use the side of your tool to press it and go like that. So let's see up here. Press it and use the side to flatten it down. So we're going to do that again. Move the score tape back in here. I'll hold a hand here and here. Take my tool and go around. And I can flatten that down as I go. And down here. Okay. And then we can fold it in. And if we need to use our tool, we will. Okay, we can burnish that. And this is what you should have so far. Now I see the little bit of dust. I'm going to clean my table up really quick before I continue. But this is what you should have. Don't pull in just yet, okay? All right, I am back. I cleaned up my area here, re-washed my hands. Grab your 4 1/4 by 8 1/2 inner spine cover. Now take a look where your Tyvek, where the spacing is in between. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to place score tape all over this, and we're going to line it. And then what we're going to do is place it directly over. You see where your little grooves are? That's going to go directly over. And when we do that, we're going to space this so you're going to have cardstock showing down here and up here. So it's important that we get this on evenly. So if you need to do a light pencil mark to make sure that you have even spacing at the top and bottom. And if you'd like to make a pencil mark on the side, so you know exactly where this is to place, you can do that. So we're going to put our score tape on the side that we have our writing. First thing we're going to want to do is go all the way around like a picture frame. So I have mine down. The next thing is I'm going to lay my score tape. This is a very important piece next to each other all the way across. And I'm going on my last one. Looks like I'm just going to fit in there. I want you to turn this over and inspect your pieces. Make sure score tape is not peeking over the edges. And now we're going to burnish this really good. Alright, I'm going to remove all the score tape backing, and we're going to place this together. And I hear some workers outside. But that is nothing compared to what it has been around here, so I'm going to go with it. Don't think I'm going to stop the video. Alright, I got that. I'm going to bring this back, and I see where I'm supposed to be, top and bottom, and to the sides. And to try and get that on evenly, I'm going to go with it right like that. And we're going to use our tool and burnish this down really good. If you can see any of your pencil marks at the top or the bottom, erase that. That will get covered eventually because we are going to reinforce these hinges at the end of the video. Now while you're burnishing, you may hear some crackling, and that's just the air getting out from underneath. Alright, so now that we have this, what we're going to do is put our hand in the middle of the spine. We're going to slip our other hand from underneath, and we're going to carefully start pulling up the sides. And that's why we put score tape side by side on this so that we don't get any bubbling. In the past I've tried to use wet glue, but I always seem to miss somewhere, and so that's why I use the score tape to make sure it stays as flat as possible without any bubbling up. So I'm just gently kind of working this, and as soon as it hits my hand right here, that's where I stop. This is not meant to go all the way over. You will rip out your sides on the other side. So I'm going to do the same over here. Slowly. And I have my hand kind of upright so I know where I need to stop. And this will settle down. You're going to be very stiff to start, but I'm right about there. So now that we've done that, we can actually see where our hinging is. You have two pieces that are 8.5 by 10 5/8. These are our inner covers. Now you see where your little hinge is. If we were to lay this top and bottom, this is 8.5. This and this is going to line up with the top and the bottom of your inner spine cover. So that's going to make it easy. And you can see where your hinge is so that you don't get this on your hinge. But let's just place that down, maybe a 1/4 inch away to start from that little hinge. Line it up top and bottom, and then you can scoot it over. And that will give you some white cardstock from the wrapping over here, and you'll be far enough away from your hinge. So this is how this is going to place. And same with this. And then it would place like that. So it's going to be a nice clean inside for us. So on the side that you wrote, we'll place the score tape. I'm just going to move that out of the way. So what we do on this one, we're going to do on this other one. So first, let's go around the edges like a picture frame. And then we're going to burnish, of course, when we're all done. Okay, once I've gone all the way around, we're just going to go one down the middle. And we'll do 2 strips on each side, and that'll be plenty. So just kind of space them out as best as you can. You don't need to measure. So just like that, and I will burnish. We're going to do the same with the other side. Okay, burnish, and we will place these together. I've got the backing off one of my pieces, and again I'll stay a 1/4 inch away from that hinge. Line it up top and bottom with that inner spine cover. Try to get this on straight and place it. And then all we have to do is burnish. And after we do this, the only thing we have left to do is put our pages in. And our pages, like I said, at the end of the tutorial, we will be reinforcing them in. This is a large album, and the pages will tend to get heavy. So there's one, and we'll get the other one on. So right now, this is what you should have. Now again, if you got any splintering on these seams at the top, I did not. But what I want you to do really quick before we put the inner pages in, we'll do this together, is take your clear glue. Your art glitter glue is good because it dries clear. But if you got any splintering over here, what you're going to do is you'll dab a little bit of glue right where it is, and you will use your finger to rub in the direction the splinter is supposed to go back. Now once you go over once, Then you can tap it a couple times. If you keep tapping it, you will tear your paper. So if it didn't get down after a couple taps, let it dry, add a little more glue, run it back over and tap it again. And that should take care of it. Let's grab our inner pages. This is the 8.5 by 11 inner page. At this point, what I am going to do is erase anything. We will label these page 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Here is our scoring. We're just going to fold on that score line. Use our tool to help it on each one of these. And our spacing in between our pages are 5/8 because that's where we scored it. Okay, so with the peak up, let's grab our 3/8 score tape. And you might want to grab your 1/4 inch score tape. I'll get it ready. That might help. And if you don't have 1/4 inch, you can overlap with your 3/8. First thing is here's my 3/8. You see where the peak is? We're going to go just to the right of that peak without getting on the peak. And we're going to lay a piece of score tape all the way down. So you will see there will be some white cardstock over here that still needs some adhesive. I'm going to burnish that, and then I will clip off anything when I'm done that is overhanging, because that will show. So my 1/4 inch here, and I'm just going to go to the other side without going over. And I'm going to burnish that down really good. And I can see I got score tape peeking over the edge, and I got to take care of that. And that's about it. So on the other two, we're going to do the same exact thing. And then we're going to place them together. And that's the easy part. That's what I like about this hinging system, is that it's very easy. And it works. And again, we will be reinforcing those hinges in at the end of the tutorial. I have these all done, so I'll grab one for now. There's the peak. And I'm going to show you first before we do this. So what's going to happen is we will release the adhesive. We'll turn it so the adhesive is facing down. Now you see where your crease is, right? We're going to pull up one side. This piece is the same distance or height as our spine cover. So when we pull this up, all we have to do is press it up against the cover and line it up with our spine cover and press. We'll do that together. Okay. Hold it up, straight up and down. I'm going to line this up with my spine cover. Push it up against. Press it down. And that's in. And that's where we are going to be burnishing. Really good. So we'll burnish this side. We will turn it to this side, and we will burnish down right there. Okay, so now that we have this one in, we're going to take a second one. We'll remove the adhesive, and this is the real easy part. The adhesive is down. All we're going to do is push it up against this other one, line it up top and bottom, and press. Here we go. So top and bottom, up against, press. Take our tool, make sure we burnish that really well. And we have this. Now we're going to have a larger space in the back, and that's fine. That's just all depends on your spacing and stuff. But we have something to do back here, so that works out well for us. When we get to the last page, it'll be a little bit thicker in our book, what we do. And that extra spacing will help us. So here's that. And we do the same thing. Just push it up against, line it up, and press. So when we're done, they should lay fairly straight, and if you got them a little bit off, that's okay. So you should be pretty straight there. So by the time we're done, this is what it's going to look like. You can see there's just maybe a little bit more, maybe an eighth more spacing, and this is the back. Okay, so while you have it here and you are looking at it and you know the larger spacing is the back, keep it back there. This is our cover, and this is the front, and we're going to label this so it makes it easier. So this is the front. Let's rotate that so we know the spacing is larger in the back. We're going to put back, front. We're going to open it up to the inside cover. We're going to put a number 1. The next is 2, 3, 4. And I want you to label these as well so you keep your orientation correct when we're working in the book. 5, 6, 7, last page is 8, and that's where our larger spacing is. Whoops, there goes my score tape. The base album construction is complete, and we are now going to move on to decorating the outside. We are on to decorating the outside of our album, and in your paper pack you will find this beautiful print, and on the back it is this. Now before we get started, if you are new to my tutorials, one thing I do try to do is stay consistent on how I tell you to cut. I will tell you to start over here and measure over this way. However, although I'm starting over here and measuring over, I may have us turn the paper upside down. And that is what we're going to do for this. That way we all have the same leftover scraps, which we will put into a pile called our reserves or scrap pile. And we will be able to find those easily to match up all through the tutorial. So here we go. We're going to look at it like this. Our print is upside down. Our first cut, we're going to measure over 11 inches and cut. We'll start there. So my blade is right over here. And we will do 11 inches. And we're going to cut. Now, as I just said, anything that falls off the side, unless I tell you to hold it off to the side, which I'm going to. Other than that, if I don't tell you to, I'm going to tell you to put it in your reserve pile. Again, your reserve pile is your scrap pile. There is our first cut. Now we're going to turn it this way. We're going to actually be making 2 cuts, but we'll do them separately. So we're looking at it this way. Our trim is down here. Measure over 1 inch and cut. So 1 inch, if I can get this, I gotta move some stuff out of the way here. About 1 inch. This piece we're gonna put in our reserves, our scrap pile. Now, still looking at it the same way, we're gonna measure over 8 7/8 and cut. So 8 7/8. This piece put in your reserves. So I'm going to move this out of the way. After a while, I won't be pulling this out. You'll kind of get the hang of what I'm doing. So let's grab the front of our album, and all we're going to do right now is just lay it down to look. But when we place this down, we should be able to place it down and still see a little bit of our white cardstock bordering it all the way around. And this is how we're going to place that. So let's flip it over. We're going to place score tape around the outside like a picture frame to start. And I'm using my 3/8. It's a little wider. All right, I have that. Let's go 1 down the middle. And we'll go 2 on each side for this. That way we don't get any liftage in between. All right, now check and inspect to make sure you don't have any overhang of your score tape. Clip it all off, because if you don't, what's going to happen is your album's going to collect dust and it's going to stick to that overhang of adhesive. So just make sure you're good. Let's give this a good burnish. Now one thing, because these are large sheets, and it's kind of hard to get it on even sometimes. What I like to do is once I remove the score tape, I'm going to take some of my wet glue and I'm going to place it right down along here once the score tape's off. That way when I am trying to line this up evenly, I can kind of have some wiggle room to shift it to make sure it's going on straight. So we'll place this together. Okay, I've shot a little bit of glue down there. It's time for me to get this on. And I'm just going to take my time with this. Down there. Here's the thing, if you get it on a little crooked, chances are no one's really going to notice. Okay, so I have it down. Now I'm going to open it up and I'm going to burnish, especially getting those corners. And if any glue squirts out, I'll make sure to clean that up. So this print in the paper packs was perfect, especially if you're not using flowers or anything else. That looks good. We're going to go ahead and rotate this on over to the back. In your paper pack, you will have another one of these. And we're going to cut this a little bit different. What I'm after is actually the back side. So what we're going to do is look at it like this. Our trim is here, again, back side. And we're going to measure over 11 inches and cut. So 11 inches. Get that there. This piece we are going to save. We will put it off to the side with our other one that's like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it like this. So the band is down here. We're going to measure over 1 inch and cut. I think that's about 1 inch. This piece put in your reserves or scrap pile. Now keeping it in this, we're going to measure over 8 7/8 and cut. 8 7/8. And this piece goes in our reserves. And I'm going to move this out of the way. So if you did not write on yours and bypass the front and the back, do make sure that your orientation is the right way and you're not putting it on upside down. This is going to go on this side. Let's make sure that when we place it, we still can see some of the white border, and I can. So we're going to do this the same way. Score tape around the outside like a picture frame, 1 down the middle, 2 strips on either side. We'll shoot some glue and we will put it on the back together. So let's get that ready. I've got some glue down at the bottom to help me, and I am ready here. I'm just going to do what I did before, and then I'll open it up and burnish. So far that's what our front and our back looks like. We're now going to be working on this. So I'm going to split this in half, and I'm going to show you what we're going to be using. Those 2 pieces that we cut, what we're going to do is we're going to look at it like this. And as you notice, I have the little trim over here. We're going to measure over 8 7/8 and cut. Those 2 little pieces we'll put in our reserves. So don't glue these down just yet, but we'll just place them right there. We'll place them down right there. We have another piece that goes in, and behind the cover of one of your pieces, you'll find this. And on this one, I'm actually going to grab my paper cutter out so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to stick this off to the side. So the idea of what I'm going to do is I am going to trim off this colored strip, and I'm going to leave the white. So right in between there, I'm just going to cut. This piece I'm going to put in my reserves. It looks like it wouldn't be useful for anything, but actually these can come in very handy. So I left that white. What I'm going to do is come over here and go right underneath this little squiggly so I can get the same amount of white with this trim. And I'm going to do that really quick and I'll show you. Just do the best you can. So this is what I did. And we're going to keep that handy. There's something else that we need. So if we turn it like this so that we can see the direction, we're going to measure over 8 7/8 and cut. 8 7/8. We'll stick this little piece in our reserves. Kind of slipped around on me. So I'm going to show you the idea of this. Now you got to be really careful because you have your hinges there, right? So I'm going to pop this up so you can actually see better, at least part of it. So one is going to go over here. I need to burnish down in that corner a little better. And I'm going to center that top and bottom and leave a little bit of white over there. And for this, I'm just going to use glue because it is kind of harder on a smaller piece sometimes. We can use glue here. And we're going to do the same over here with the other. And then this piece is going to overlap on top. And then we have something else. So let me see if I can get that. It's not, I can't really see over this without getting my hand in the video. But when we're done, it's going to kind of look like that. And I think it is going to look really good. So one thing you can do is when you have it down here, at least you're spacing away from the sides, you can make a little pencil mark. So I just want to look and see here so that I can get the same amount of white over here. So I'm just going to kind of put a pencil mark here and I'll do that. So that will tell me how far over I need to place this when I lay this out flat. Make it much easier laying it down. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to lay this piece here. Again, our goal is to try to center this top and bottom so some white shows up there. And it should kind of go even with your other prints. So I see I need to be here, somewhere about there. I think that's about right. And once you lay it down before the glue and burnishing, you can kind of look to see if you're straight or not. Pull that over a little. That looks about right. And I'm going to burnish that really quick. Get that down there. Okay, second one is this one. Right there. So this one, if I flip this one over, it's that color. And you can do that color. Or you can continue on with the same. I think I'm going to have the same up. It's up to you. Either or looked really good. I'd just stay a little consistent, I think, on this. And I'm going to find that little pencil line, and I'm going to try it. Let's see. That looks good. I'm going to burnish. And then this one's very easy because it'll line up with the other two. Okay. Place it down, making sure I have the same amount of print over here as over here, so that will help me keep this straight. And then you can kind of look to see. And that looks good to me. Now remember, these are handmade, and if you make little errors, most of the time people are not going to even notice. Because they'll be looking at all the other things that are going on there. So let's take a look. That looks pretty good to me. And it flows nicely. Okay, I'm going to set this off to the side. Now one thing I like to do is on some of these cut aparts is I like to only get what I'm after and leave the rest intact. It's easier to find in our scrap pile or reserve pile. I'm going to go with 2 hearts and love need no words. So I'm going to come in from over here, kind of weave around it to get it out. Now this whole thing is going to go in my reserves. And now let's cut out and around this image. What we're going to do is grab some of our scrap cardstock and we're going to glue this down to it. We'll burnish and then we're going to cut out and around it, leaving a little bit of a white border. And the reason why I do that a lot of times, most of you know that's been following me, is there's a few reasons. Number 1, it cleans up my fussy cut, making it look really good. Number 2, it strengthens the piece. And number 3, by leaving that little bit of white, it will separate this from maybe a busier background so that it pulls forward. It's not very satisfying to watch somebody fussy cut that's slower at fussy cutting like me. I shake all over, and it wouldn't be very satisfying to sit there. It'd be quite boring, especially for some of you that are very quick. I'd probably drive you crazy. Okay, so I have this down. I'm going to now cut out and around, and I will show you mine when I'm done. And the amount of white I'm going to leave is maybe about a 1/16, just a little bit. That's it. Here's mine. And we're just going to come right on over here, and we're going to glue that down. So you can see how it separates my little sentiment here from the background by adding that. And it really cleans it up. So we're going to stick that right there. And we're just using glue for this. And let's see here. I'll show you in just a minute. I'm just going to come down maybe an inch from the top. Or 3/4 of an inch, whatever you want. So this is how I have mine. And I'm going to open up my book. And I'm going to go ahead and get that down. Ribbon was definitely optional. You don't have to if you're not into the lace and the ribbon. I'm not going to go all out with the lace in this and everything. Just a little bit here and there in the ribbon. I'm just going to attempt to make a small little bow. Something like that. I'll cut the tails in a moment. I am going to grab my Beacon fabric tack. And it's going to go right there, and then I'll cut my tails. So I'll just kind of get some up here. I'm about out. I'm not using this to cut it. I'm just trying to puff it out so it doesn't get stuck to the glue. As you can see, I'm really shaky today. It's real annoying, even for me. Okay. If you are using any flat back pearls, you can glue that right on top there. And because it's going on fabric, I think I will just use my Beacon fabric tack. And then I'm going to have to let that dry. And there is that. Now I'm going to keep this opened up because, whoops, wrong one. Because I'm going to need some drying time for that. If you have stickles, and here's the thing with stickles, if you've never used it, you do not need thick, just a little bit. And all I'm going to do here is kind of put some around this little flower. So just a little bit goes a long way. You don't need it all goopy. You kind of see. I don't know if you can see my sparkles. There, maybe. All right, if you are using flowers from the tutorial, we made some flowers, and I said go ahead and make some extra for the inside. I'm going to lay this out. So here is my side. Here are a couple leaves, and I'm just going to lay them out right now and make sure I don't cover up the bride there. And we'll do this first, and then we will glue it down. And I did make a flower that was the largest, and I'm going to stick that right there. And then we can maneuver some of this a little better once you see how you want this. And I have some here, and it's going all over. I apologize. I am just shaking so bad today. And we have a little flower here. Let's see, what do I want? I think I'll put one here. I got this beautiful flower. I'll be able to maybe tuck in here. I think that looks pretty good. Now you can even go as far as to add some flowers over here on the side if you want. I'm going to hold off on that. So I am going to glue this down. So while that's drying, I'm going to save these for inside the album. I'm going to get my stickles, and I'm going to be adding some things to this. Now up here in the flowers, like I said, just a little bit here and there. And then you can take your finger and kind of do like that, just to give it a little something. And you can go all out with this. And I think I'm going to get right around the neckline here on her. And then kind of brush it down onto, just to add a little bit of sparkles. Trying to keep it on the dress. And then I'm just dabbing. Real easy. For him, I'm going to get the white. And you can even use a little brush or something in there. I'm not going to be too concerned. I think it'll look good either way, even if it gets past where I wanted it. And then I'll add some right here. Okay, you can also go as far as going around maybe some of these. So I'm not going to get real particular. I'm just going to kind of swirl this around. And then I'll dab. I will bring this up so you can see what I've done here. It's just real easy. So this is dry. We've seen that. But here is my cover. I think it looks really pretty. I think I like that. And then some of the shimmer going around. Now, I'm going to try something here. I cut off of this, the thinner lace, about 5 inches. And I'm going to see what this looks like. If it doesn't look good, I'll save it for inside. But I'm just going to cut that then in half, so about 2.5 inch pieces. I'm going to like snip at an angle up at the top, kind of like a point. See what this gets me. I'm just kind of snipping at a point. Now down here, I'm just going to go at an angle. So as you can see, kind of a point and at an angle. And I have the seam right here running, so when I do this side, and I have the seam outside here, I'm going to snip at an angle on this side going this way. And they don't have to be exactly even. And I think I did that right. So now I have the seams on the inside. They look kind of like this. I'm going to glue these two, the top little peaks together. And we'll see what happens here. Like I said, this will work good for the inside if I don't like how it looks on the outside. And this was optional to do if you have flowers going on. If you don't have flowers going on, you can probably still do this and then with some ribbon or something on the top. But what I'm trying to do is to kind of pinch it at the top now where the glue was. And I'm going to try and tuck that in there somewhere. So I'll add some glue, and I'm going to use something to get in there. Probably this. Lift up one of these leaves and tuck it up in there. So we have a little bit of lace coming off the side. And let's see about making another little ribbon bow. And I've got to go wash my hands before I start in on the inside for sure. On the back side, a little, whoa, okay. I've got to clean that. I'm going to have a mess. There we go. Just a little bit of glue. That should hold that. And I'm going to kind of squeeze this together, try to get it in there. And then I'll clip some tails. There we go. Just like that. Decorating the outside is complete. We are now going to move on in to page 1 after this dries. And I hope you like the cover. We're on page 1, and to get started, we have all our pre-cuts in front of us. We are going to review them. If you are die cutting, what you're going to want to do is die cut 2 of the largest, 4 of this size, and you will be using these that go around when you do your die cutting. And what you're going to get, and this is completely optional, here are the 4, very pretty, and then 2 of the larger. And again, you don't have to have this. All right, let's get started with our pre-cuts here. We have quite a few. So the first thing on our pre-cutting guide, it said to cut 2 pieces that were 5.5 by 8 1/4. We labeled these back fold out. What we did on each one of these is we laid them on our scoring board. We are 5 1/2 inches across, and on each one we just scored at 1/2 inch. And that's it. We cut 2 pieces that were, let me get that in frame here, 1 inch by 4 7/8, and we called these a back tuck. There's no scoring on these. We had one that was 7 1/2 by 11 inches. We called it a folder. What we did was we laid this on our scoring board. We are 11 inches across, and at 5 1/2 we scored. And you can go ahead and fold that right now and use your tool, and we'll set that off to the side. Next, we had 2 pieces that were 5 3/4 by 8 1/4, and we just called these a fold out. On each one of these, what we did was we laid this on our scoring board. We are 5 3/4 across, and what we did, we scored at 1/2 and 11/16. So to figure that out, if your scoring board does not do the 16ths, what I always do is I measure. There's my 1/2 inch, and then I just make a little pencil mark where the 11/16 is. And then what I do is I just line that up with a notch on my scoring board anywhere and score it. So 1/2 inch and 11/16 on each one of these. Next, we had 2 pieces that were 4 by 5 7/8. We called these a pocket. And what we did on each one of these is we laid it on our scoring board. We are 4 inches across. We scored at 1/2 inch. We then rotated it, so now we're at 5 7/8. We scored at 1/2 and 5 3/8 on each one of these. Next, we had a 6 1/4 by 8 inch. We called it a folder frame pocket. What we did was we laid this on our scoring board. We are 6 1/4 across. We scored at 1/2 and 5 3/4. We then rotated it. So now we are 8 inches across, and we just scored at 1/2 inch. Last one, and it's a 4 1/4 by 6 1/2, and we called it a frame template. There is no scoring on this. So let's begin. I'm going to grab my cutting thing here. In your paper pack, you will find this gorgeous print. On the back, it is this. The first thing that we're going to do is turn this completely upside down. So you'll have this at the bottom. Measure over 10 inches and cut. So 10 inches. We're going to put this in our reserves. Let's flip it this way. The border's over here. Measure over 2 3/4 and cut. 2 3/4. We'll put this in our reserves. We're going to work with this one. And still looking at it like this, we're just going to measure over 8 1/4 and cut. This piece goes in our reserves. So what we've ended up with is a beautiful print showcasing this. The first 2 pre-cuts are the same, and we cut 2 of them. Now this is the back fold out. It's 5 1/2 by 8 1/4, and we only had 1 score line on that. So let's fold on those score lines, and we're going to use our tool here to sharpen that up. Okay. One is going to have your hinge, your peak, off to the right, and one is going to have your hinge off to the left. So if you need to erase so you don't get turned around, and you can do that. So what we're going to first do is, I'm going to tell you and then we're going to do it. We're going to apply some glue here. We're going to fold that back, and we're going to bring it all the way over to the left of our page without going over, and lining it up top and bottom. And we're going to do that as well. So this has no spacing. Okay, and we're going to use glue because it's easier to maneuver this to get it on straight. Just make sure you don't go over your edge and that you're lined up there. So once you have it down, we'll burnish and we'll open it up to make sure we don't have any glue seeping out. We're going to do the same over here. Fold that back. Bring it even. I just want to make sure I don't go over here. That looks pretty good. In your reserves, you will find this piece. It is 1 inch wide by about, I think 11 inches long by 1 inch. If you flip it over, you will see that we have this down here and here. We're going to turn it sideways, measure over 8 1/4 and cut. After making that cut, we're going to measure over 1/2 inch and cut that right down the middle. Once you've done that, oh, I got glue on me. I'm going to go wash my hands. We're going to place this down on each side, and I'm going to leave a 1/16 away from that little hinge area there. Now, if you prefer to go with this side, that would be lovely too. But I'm going to go with the other side. Kind of mix it up a little. So about a 1/16 away. And I'm just using my scoring line to help me keep straight here. And we're going to do the same over here. And I think that looks beautiful. Let's get our paper for the inside. In your paper pack, you will have this gorgeous print. On the back, it is this. So because we have so many cut aparts on this side, I actually want this side to be up, but we want the same leftovers. Let's turn it this way, measure over 8 inches, and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Put this in your reserves. We're going to make 2 cuts. We're going to measure over 4 3/4 and cut. We'll measure over again 4 3/4 and cut. And we'll see what that looks like. These are the 2 pieces that we want. Let's verify this is going to fit in there. We may have to trim it down a little bit more, but let's see. The idea is to place this down, and you should have a white border all the way around, and you'll probably be about 1/8 of an inch away from that hinge. And on this side, and I'm going to put the darker down here, and they fit good. So now all I'm going to do is glue that down. Now you'll notice that one has a shading on the side. I'm going to put that one over here, if you notice, and then the shading is down there. So as you can see, with these larger fold outs, we're going to be eating up a lot of paper. And I am going to try and conserve too, and so that we can get the most out of our paper. So we may splice together 2 pieces, and it'll look good. I know we have 3 paper packs, but some of the paper has cut aparts or tags or stuff on that. So we're just going to have to be mindful of where we use our paper and how we use it. And of course, we always need to burnish. All right, let's close that up. We're going to find our paper for this. A couple of our pre-cuts we're going to need for this as well is the 2 1 inch by 4 7/8 back tuck. So we'll just set those off to the side. Remember how I said we'll be splicing together pieces of our decorated paper? Well, this is a great opportunity for us. So I'm going to show you what I have. I have this piece that we put in our reserves. Okay, so I'm going to lay this out like this. I have the darker edge right over here. Next, you're going to find this piece, and this piece, whoops, this is 12 inches by the way. This piece is 8 inches. It's perfect. And it's by 2.5. On the other side, it's this. So I'm going to lay that down on top because we're going to do one cut. The darker is down here. You will also find 2 of these. Now notice they both have this really nice little trim piece. This one has a little more left on it, and we have the trim piece here. They look like each other. On the other side, they look like this. Okay, so that and that. Actually, I'm going to turn these over, so these 2 over, so we get the same leftovers. That trim is over here. That trim is over here. On each of these, we're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. This one is already at 8 inches. We do nothing. So let's cut these 3 at 8 inches. After making those cuts, this is what you should have. These 2, if you turn them over, they look like this, and then we have these. Okay, so bring up these 2 that look like each other. Now notice that this piece, we have that little rope, and then we have this. But on this one, we need to cut off the gray little line so that they look the same. So I'm going to put this on my paper cutter, and I'm going to cut this part off so it looks the same as the edge here. So now, these look the same at the edge. And they kind of come off of each other there, line up. This one is wider than this one, so I want you to put these 2 together. The smaller on top, take your pencil, because we want these the same, and make a pencil mark. There's Sissy and Sasha. And then we're going to cut. I've cut the excess off, and now they should be about the same. Now it's time to cut the larger one down. I want you to flip it over so that you're looking at it like this. Measure over 2.5 inches and cut. This piece for right now, just hold it off to the side. Okay, we're going to start placing these. So this is going to line up over here, and we're going to leave probably about 1/16 of an inch from the edge, and we will center that top and bottom. So let's glue that down. I'm sorry if the camera's moving around. My husband came home for a second and didn't realize I was filming, so I had to turn it off. We've got an electrician here, but they're not supposed to cut the power, so I'm going to open this up to make sure I got this straight. Okay, I'm going to close that. And I have this over here, and I'm going to do the same over here, and I'm going to line this up the same, the top of where I got that one, and leave about 1/16 away from the edge. So this one's easier when they're both closed, so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. I think right about there. All right. Now we have these 2 pieces, right? And they both are shaded on the side. And we want to make this look the same. So we're going to move in a space in between because we will fill that up. We're going to apply glue here. We just want it to look consecutive, the same, how we're doing this. So we're going to place this one down, and we will leave about 1/16 from the side. We'll line it up so it is the same, matching over here. And we'll do this one over here. This piece, I think we're going to throw that back in our reserves, and we're going to grab this piece out. This has the trim over here. It's about 12 oh wait, I think this one's about 11 inches long, and it is 1 inch wide. So I'm going to flip it over, the little trim over here. We're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. And now all we have to do is, this is 1 inch wide, we're going to measure over 1/2 inch and cut this down. I think this will look better. So this should fit right on in there, and we are not done. That should fit right there too. And if you'd like to use that side, you can, but I'm going to do this. Now, if for whatever reason you have a space where you can see the white, then what you're going to want to do is maybe cut a piece of ribbon and go down, but mine seemed to fit going by the way I did this. I'm going to cut two pieces of ribbon that are 8 inches long. So I'm just going to place this down right here and measure up what I need. And I can always trim that. There's one. This is to cover up any white that may be showing. And it's going to look good by the time we're done here. Okay, I'm going to grab my other glue and I'm going to glue this down. Just make sure I get that on there straight. Okay, glue is down. Remember the back tuck? The side you wrote on is where we're going to put the glue. Now we're just putting the glue about 1/8 inch up from the bottom all the way across. That glue comes down here and we're just going to place it right at the bottom of our decorative paper. You'll still be able to see your white cardstock from down here. And we're going to do it on this one too. We'll make sure that these are even side to side. And I think that looks pretty good. In your reserves, you will find this piece. It is about 1 inch by 10 inches. This is what it looks like. And on the back, it looks like this. Okay, for this one, all we're going to do is measure over 1/8 from this side and just trim it off. So I did that, just a little bit off there. We're going to make 2 cuts. Measure over 4 7/8 and cut. Measure over again 4 7/8 and cut. This is what you should have. We're going to apply glue. And we'll make sure the writing is going the right way. And we're going to glue those down. Right like that. Right over those little tucks. And when we do that, we should leave a little bit, about 1/16 of a white lip of our cardstock showing there. If you are using the flat Rochelle lace, we're going to measure over side to side about 4 7/8. And we'll cut and glue that down there. Alright, so this is what we have so far and it looks pretty good. The colors look amazing. The next thing that we want to grab at is our 2 5 3/4 by 8 1/4 fold out. And these are the one with the 2 score lines. So we're going to fold on those score lines and we'll use our tool to help us out. Hello, lace. There you go. Get back over there. Okay. We're going to have a hinge off to the right and a hinge off to the left. So make sure your orientation is accurate. And how we're going to do this. Here is my right side. You will have 2 score lines. On the outside score line, we're going to pinch and crease so you will still be able to see that other score line. What we're going to do is wrap that flap back behind here and push it in. And make sure that we are even. Push it all the way in. And then we're going to flip this over. Now before we do anything, we want to make sure that if we felt it slip, then we need to realign it. And mine did slip a little bit there. So, and I like to keep my hand down. Now when you open this up, your score line that you see should be pretty straight. If it is not straight, then you need to realign. Otherwise it's going to go on a little crooked for you. And I'm placing glue and then I'm rolling over that flap to the back. Now when you do this, sometimes glue likes to seep out. So I got that down. After I'm done with that, I'm going to open it up and make sure there is no glue seeping out. So once I have that one, I can fold on that other score line and then push in. And that creates a spacing there. Okay, we're going to do the same with this one. So hinges off to the left on the outside score line. We're going to pinch and crease. And we're going to hook it on there, and it should come even with your other one. And I'm going to hold on to that, lay it down, open it up, and I can see that my score line is straight going up and down there. And I'm going to apply my glue. And once I've done that, I'm going to make sure I pull it back to the right side. I'm going to check. I see a little glue down there, and I'm going to get that up really good. And then I'm going to push back on that other one and push in. And you should look like this, straight. You will have a spacing in between, and that is perfectly fine. Let's open these up. We need to find the paper for the inside. In your paper pack, you will find one of these. We want this. We're going to turn it sideways. The rose is down here. We're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. For now, put this in your reserves. We're going to make 2 cuts. We're going to measure over 4 3/4 and cut. We'll measure over again 4 3/4 and cut. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to apply glue to this, and we're going to bring it over. And we're going to leave ourselves about 1/16 of an inch away from the side. And then we'll just center that top and bottom. We're going to glue that down. That's a beautiful image. So is this back one. So again, be mindful of that outside score line here. And right now I'm going to make a pencil mark so you can kind of see. And then I'll erase it. But that's my outside score line. I think you can see that a little bit. So I'm going to be about 1/16 inch away from the side, and that should give me about 1/8 of an inch away from that. So if you want to maneuver it, just center it in between, you can. So there is, I'm going to erase that. Now that you can see, so I'll bring it up first. So you can see I am away from that and that. Erase that. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. Trying to get it straight. Okay, I'm going to set this off to the side. In your little pre-cuts, we did 2 4 by 5 7/8. We called them pockets. I want you to hold this in front of you so you can see your line here and here, your scoring lines, but then there's one that you're going to have going across the bottom. In the corner, it makes a little square with those score lines. I think you can see that. We're going to cut on those score lines and cut the square out. And we're going to do that on this side. Whoops, I didn't quite get that right. There we go. And we're going to do the same with this one. Once you have that, flip it over and we're going to fold towards us on those score lines, on each one. All right, so the idea is here's my sides and here's the bottom. You want to place your glue down in the bottom flap, just in the corner. You don't want the glue to spread out past the point of when you're pushing that in. Otherwise it may glue your pocket in the corner down. Okay, and I'm going to do this one. And we'll burnish. All right, I am going to pull this back into frame here. Now the opening is the side that doesn't have the little flap. So this is the bottom. Opening here. We're going to place this down, and the idea of this is to be able to pucker it up just a little bit. So I'm going to put glue down the sides there. I'm going to line the bottom up with the bottom of my decorative paper. Put the side here, and I will press in the other one so that it does not go over the side. So just kind of press those in. Get those burnished down, and then I'll get the bottom. And that'll help so you can get more in this pocket. You should be able to get 4x6s in there. Photographs, and then a mat being a slightly larger if you're matting on that. So I'll do it again. And I'm going to line up the side over here with the inside one first, and then I'll push in the other. My stomach is growling. It wants some food. Get the sides first, and then the bottom. So that should not interfere with your fold out. Let's find our paper. In your reserves, you will find this print, and on the back it has some writing. It has that same trim up here as well. The first thing that we're going to do is make 2 cuts on this one, and this one is about 10 inches long by about 2 3/4. Measure over 4 3/4 and cut. Measure over again 4 3/4 and cut. All right, we'll just put those over there. You will also have this piece. It's our cutting off the polka dots. This one is 8 inches by about 2 1/2. Looking at it like this, the little trim polka dots over here, measure over 4 3/4 and cut. Once you have that, I want you to turn it this way, measure over 1 1/4 and cut. So this is what you should have. Flip them over. First one we're going to lay down is the polka dots. Next, we're going to put glue, and we're looking at this side up, not the writing side. And we're going to place that on top and leave ourselves about a 1/16 inch up here. And we're going to glue those down just like that. So it looks like a little trim piece, and it matches up here. If you are using die cuts, these are the smaller ones. It should fit almost side to side there. You may have to clip the little corners off, but we're going to go ahead and glue that down. On the last page of your paper pack, we're going to cut out the little bird cage. I'm just going out and around the little dove there. And I'm going to keep the dove kind of attached to the paper. That's why I'm kind of doing that, so they don't get lost. I may implement those into this, but let's cut out and around, and I'm just going to kind of weave out and around this image, and I will show you what mine looks like when I'm done. This is what mine looks like. As you can see, I just kind of weaved around. Next, we're going to apply glue. We need to stiffen this up. We're going to glue it down and cut out and around it. And once I'm done, I will show you. This is what mine looks like. Now I am going to place that right here, and I'm going to glue that down. So I'm going to rotate this over. I'm going to get the side and the bottom. And I think I want to keep this as maybe a little tuck area, so I'm just going to follow the edge up so that nothing catches, kind of give a bend. Bring this over to the side of my pocket. Okay, we're going to create a small bow. And I'm just going to stick it right at the top of the little bird cage there. So I think that looks really good. We're just going to set this off to the side. I want to work on that folder. Let's grab our 7.5 by 11 inch folder. The opening would be off to the right. We have a frame template that goes with this. And we have the folder frame pocket. Now the first thing I want you to do is look at your folder frame pocket. You're going to have your lines situated to where you have one score line on the bottom, one here, and one here. Now this is just going to help you as a guideline. So stick your ruler down and measure in 1 inch from this side and the other side. Just put a light pencil mark, and 1 inch from this side. Put a light pencil mark. Here's my score line from the bottom up, about 1 inch. This is just a little guideline. Now from the top down, ½ inch. ½ inch only. Okay. My template, I'm going to stick this on here and I'm going to line it up with those lines I created. That looks fairly straight. Now I'm going to use my pencil and really lightly, in case I need to erase anything, is draw around this template. Well, I am just shaking so bad today. Okay. Once you have that, as you can see, this is what it should look like. Now, I have a little cutting pad here. This little template you can just put off to the side, get it out of the way. So what we're going to do now is take our craft knife, or you can cut by hand, but we're going to cut this out and around. Now, one of the easiest ways to keep straight is if you have one of these style, so those are options. If you have one of these style cutters, mine is a cutter and a scoring board. This lifts up to where you can just place your blade down and go, and then you know you've got a straight cut. And you don't want to cut all the way down, we're just cutting that. My other paper cutter does not have the option of lifting the blade and placing it down where needed. That ain't a little, there we go. I think I'm going to go with it right here. So I'm just going to go up and start cutting on that line. And I know my line will be straight if I put it on this paper cutter. So there's that. Hello. And then I'm going to do the same over here. Okay, so I have mine cut. And you just do the best you can with stuff like this. Now, don't worry if some of your lines are not, if you did by craft knife or even on this, and it's not exactly straight, we'll have something to cover up those edges anyway. So I do want to go ahead and just erase those pencil lines if I can. Now, we cut this out, and what we can do right now is just kind of put an X on it and stick it off to the side with this in case we need another template. I just don't want you to get confused on that writing there. Okay, remember how we did the pocket just a little bit ago? At the bottom we have a score line going this way, and this way it creates a square. Let's cut out that little square. Get that out of there. And then this will be ready. Okay. We're going to gently, carefully fold on those score lines. Now what we're going to do is fold in the sides like we did before on our other pocket. Here's my bottom flap. Just put a little bit down in those little corners, and we will fold that up. So there is the front, and here is the back. We'll be placing plastic in there once we are ready for that. But if you notice, if you were to place this down, it will fit nicely on there. It's going to give us some white border on the sides, and it'll fit top and bottom perfectly. In your paper pack, you will have this. On the back, it is this. First thing we're going to do is measure over 5 inches and cut. And make sure your lines are going this way. Once you've done that, we're going to turn it. We're going to measure over 7, and we'll try 7 3/8 and cut. This is your final piece. Now we may trim this down a little bit more, but what I would like you to do is grab your frame and flip it over so that you have this showing. So with this side up, we're going to slide that back behind and all the way down. And you'll notice that it will clear and it will fit in there. So if we were to turn it to the right side, we have this. That way we're not seeing any of these white little frames when we place this. So now, once we have that in place, all we're going to do is add glue to our little bits here. And I'll just slide this up a little bit. Get some here. And I'll put some along the side here, all the way up. Okay, so I'm going to slide that back down so that it's even. I'll keep it in place, and then I'm going to flip it over and burnish so that the glue catches the back of those flaps. So now you have this. This is my opening up here, and that should be all back and nice. Okay, so here is the front of our folder, and what we're going to do is make sure the opening is this way. The top of our piece is here, so now all we have to do is add our glue all over the back of this. And then we will center it on there. Center side to side, and we'll line up the bottom with the bottom of our folder. And then we will burnish from this side, and we'll burnish from the other side. Open that up. So that is what we should have. Now, in case your cuts are rough around here, we do have a trim that we're going to cut to go around that, and it should cover up any of these imperfections. In your reserves, you will have this print on the back. It is this. Let's turn it. The trim is over here. Measure over 7 1/4 and cut. We have this. Measure over 1/2 inch and cut. Measure over again 1/2 inch and cut. And we're going to need this piece. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to apply glue to this side. So the polka dots is up. We're going to bring it all the way over to cover that little lip on the side. And then we're going to center it top and bottom so we leave the same amount of white over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now if you would like to slip in maybe a piece of scrap cardstock right back behind so we do not get any glue on our piece, you can. So I'm going to make sure I cover up those edges. That's good for me. And I'm also going to do that over here. Okay. Now what we're going to do, measure over 1/2 inch, measure over 1/2 inch again. This piece you can put in your reserves. Okay, so what we're going to do is lay this down so that it covers side to side. We'll make a pencil mark where we need to cut. So this is my bottom one. Just so that it covers up. Now what I'm going to do is from the corner here, make a mark on my piece all the way over the corner here. And I'm just going to cut to the right of that and see how that looks. And it should. And I'm going to do it again from the corner here all the way out. And that looks good for me. I'm going to cut this so that this little scrap piece, I make sure that I can get that in there. You'll want to erase any pencil marks that you may have. Okay, I'll slide this on up here so that I can use that. And we're going to do the same thing. So, okay. So that, if you move it over, should be able to cover up any rough edges. If you were die cutting, you can place one of these like right up in there like this, and one of these right down here. So again, I'm going to grab this, stick it underneath there, and I'm going to flip it over to the wrong side and kind of center this side to side. And then I'm going to make a pencil mark where I know I need to not put my glue. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. So. And there is my folder. Now, for now, I'm not going to put anything in there. At the end of the tutorial, I can put solid colored cardstock, or I can leave it white. We're not done. We do still need to add our plastic. Now we want the plastic, we're not going to be gluing it down, we're just going to be sliding it back in behind, but we want it to be snug so that we can get a picture in between. I'm going to measure over 7 1/4 and cut. The smaller piece, put in your reserves. Now we're going to turn it. I know it's kind of hard to see. We have it the long way here. Measure over 5 1/8 and cut. So this is going to be a snug fit. If we need to trim it down to maybe 5 1/16, we will. And I'm going to slide that in. Now the part we're going to have to really work on is this bottom little lip. There we go. And it just slides right back behind. So now when you put your photograph, let me see what I got. I don't have a big 5x7, but here's your plastic. You can go back behind your plastic and slide a photograph in there. Now if you're using a smaller one, it'll frame up nicely. If you're using a 5x7, that's one thing, but you can see that it's going to look nice in there. And you still get your printed paper border. If you're using a large one, then you can, a larger photo, then you can use the whole thing. So there's our folder. Let's grab our piece. I kind of want to show you how this is going to play out. Open it up. See these? That is where this just kind of tucks back down behind. It's going to be snug, and you want it snug so it stays. But now your two flaps back there stay down, and this still gets over. And then we have a little magnetic little piece we're going to put on the outside. In your paper pack, you will find this gorgeous print. On the back, it is this. Let's turn it this way. Our trim is over here. Measure over 8 inches and cut. So this is what you should have. We're going to turn it upside down, measure over 4 3/4 and cut. Once you have that, it should look really good right here. Now this piece here, now don't get confused with this side because it doesn't match up. We want these bottom trims to match up. So we're looking at it like this. We know it matches up. Measure over 4 3/4 and cut. This piece will look good right here, but don't glue them down just yet because we do have a magnet that we need to place under this side. But first, let's get this down. And we'll center that in there. Okay, this one just hold off to the side. Pull this out of your reserves. True love stories never have endings. We're just going to cut, whoops. Okay, don't cut up from the bottom in case we want that trim. I did a boo-boo. We're going to come in from the side and up. I got to remember I cut that. I might put a piece of score tape on the back to mend that so it stays. If you ever do that, this is something that I've done before. is if you've accidentally cut into something you shouldn't have and you want it to go back on the back side, I just kind of put a piece of score tape or two to kind of mend it so it stays together. Anyway, I'm going to put that in my reserves. This piece we're going to cut out and around. Then what we're going to do is glue that down to some white cardstock, and we'll cut out and around, leaving a white border. And I'll show you what mine looks like when I'm done here. This is what mine looks like. So here is the idea of this. This is going to center right on over our little gap here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of put a little pencil mark here so I know. I'm going to grab a scratch piece of cardstock. I'm going to slide that back behind for now so I don't get glue. But I do know that it's going to go halfway down the back of this. So I'm going to get the best I can here. Halfway. Trying to line up with the lines in here and make sure I'm kind of straight. Let's see. And then I'll flip it over. Okay, once you flipped it over, grab a plus and a minus. Here's my plus, and I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to bring it in probably a 1/4 inch from the side. I can always put something over that. Now what we do is we put the mate on top. And with this side in, we're just going to bring this over and press. And that, to get it undone, you might want to shimmy that up a little. It should place you. Okay, this piece, now we lay it over this. And I'm going to shut this so I can make sure that I have the right spacing where I need to be. I need about from the bottom. Okay, let's check it out. Let's grab this piece, tuck it just a little bit. You don't have to go all the way down. Just tuck it there. That should latch. Now for these are optional, and I'm going to glue this down here and over here. So let's take a look. Here is our page 1. That looks really nice. Lots of places here for photos. And again, you don't have to tuck it all the way down. Just tuck it a little bit, enough. And you should latch shut. Page 1 is complete. There's only one thing I want to do. And first we're going to do the score tape, and then we're going to set it off to the side. We're not going to place our page 1 in first. We'll place page 2 in, and then we'll be able to match up the top and bottom of this one with our other one. But there is some stuff I want you to do here. Let's grab our 3/8 score tape. We're going to go all the way around like a picture frame. And we're going to go 2 on each side for this one. This is really big, and if you'd like to shoot in some glue on either side, you can do that. All right, back to this. Let's grab our stickles. And I'm going to do a little bit on the flower. Just dab it around. And I'm going to outline the shoe just really lightly. Okay. So I have that done, and I think what I will do, we have a little over here, little over here. I'm going to grab my stickles and go right here. And then we get some on the other side, like so. If you would like to highlight this whole thing, you can, and that's when you've got a steady hand. You're not shaking like me, but you can just kind of go over the writing a little. Now you can go further and maybe outline this whole thing if you want, but this is what mine looks like. All right, we're going to set this off to the side. We're going to let that dry. We're going to move on to page 2.